Okay. Let's do the last team that is like actually really, really good and has, a group of young players, and it's the Pelicans. Like, the Pelicans are a fascinating team because they're already really good. Like, they were really good last year because of the leap that Brandon Ingram took, because of, acquiring CJ McCollum and Jonas Valanciunas, and obviously the way that the young guys stepped up, especially late in the year. But the dude here is Zion Williamson. And if Zion Williamson does what he did in his second season with the team that's now surrounding him, this has a chance to be a top 4 team in the West. If Zion Williamson plays 70 games, 65 games, whatever, and is in reasonable shape, he now has signed a contract that says he has to be in like pretty good shape. Otherwise, the guarantees on that deal go down. If he is that, and you're doing CJ McCollum, Zion Williamson, Brandon Ingram, Jonas Valanciunas, Herb Jones, Trey Murphy, like Devontae Graham is like a definite rotation player. Like, they're a loaded team. I feel like I'm forgetting guys. They have so many dudes. Obviously, Dyson Daniels, they just drafted. Like, this team is loaded, just absolutely stacked with talent. And they have the dude in Zion Williamson that could be the one that you build around. If he is what we think he is, and what he at least was when he was a second-year player and averaged 27 points and 8 rebounds and was like the greatest driver of offense at the rim that we've seen in like many years in the NBA, basically since like Shaq, if I remember some of the research that Seth Partnow did. This team has such a high ceiling, and I'm so excited to watch them.
Yeah, and that's where I think your intro about the Western Conference having so many different groups and teams that can get up to that point is really prudent, because the Pelicans stand atop that list to me, and it's all about internal development and health. There was that trend going around. I'm not sure if you saw it, Sam, on social media last week, asking people to see what their wives would say if they could name some NBA players that who would be the first ones that come to mind. And my wife said, the Wonder Man from Duke that plays from New Orleans, one of my favorite players. He's like the freaking Hulk and a gazelle all in one. And that's
amazing.
That's Zion. And we take it for granted because we spent so much of the last year talking about his health, his weight, his contract situation in New Orleans. This is an incredibly special young basketball player. And to be able to add a superstar back into the mix from a team that overachieved, was on pace for about 50 wins over the final 3 or 4 months of the year, has a really shrewd young coach in Willie Green, and a ton of scorers and a ton of wing defenders on their roster. Like, this is a team built for postseason success. And if we get 90% of the Zion that we saw before his injury, they're going to be a real problem.
Yeah. And look, like, Zion has his issues. He has to defend. Like, he has to, I think, get in better shape so that he can play on defense. I think that's the thing with him defensively, is like, he utilizes a lot of his energy on offense and takes plays off defensively. Like, he needs to get in better condition. Like, it's fine. Like, we can say that. But the guy, over the course of his first 85 games in the NBA, averaged 26 points, 7 rebounds, shot 60% from the field. If he's that guy, averaged 3 assists, showed even more upside in terms of playmaking, especially when Stan Van Gundy was there and they were running all sorts of interesting actions with like JJ Redick as the screener, and they could figure out different ways to get him in space, right? And this team has a real chance to be able to get him in space, playing him next to, like, if you want to play a Williamson, Larry Nance lineup where Nance is like spacing to the corner, and then you have like Trey Murphy, who's an elite shooter, CJ McCollum, who's an elite shooter, Devontae Graham, who teams guard out there, X, Y, and Z, right? Like, whoever you want to throw in there. This team has such fun upside. It has such a fun ceiling if things break right for them. And I'm still like all in on the Brandon Ingram train as well. I think he's going to be a top 25 player, top 2020 player, something like that. If not next year, then the year after. He's an awesome player. Awesome player, but he doesn't have the upside that Zion does, because Zion is something that is completely different, that we just haven't really seen before. He's like 6'6" and is the best. Like, I guess like maybe he's Charles Barkley sort of, but like with way more athleticism. I don't know. He's a weird player.
He's the Hulk and a gazelle all in one. And
there it is. I love it.
That's what he is. And like, I keep thinking on the defensive side of the floor, he's not going to have to be exposed to high level players if the Pelicans don't want him to be, because you have Herb Jones, because you have Trey Murphy, guys that are long and can defend multiple types of players in positions. We could see, like, I keep thinking lineup wise, what the Pelicans could trot out there for a closing lineup. They could have McCollum and then go Murphy, Ingram, Herb Jones, and Zion, and not have a true big out on the floor. And just so many different combinations that you can do on both ends with a group like that. And if Dyson Daniels ever turns into a functional point guard that can play those closing minutes, maybe he takes the reins from McCollum eventually. Now everybody is 6'6" or above, really, really skilled. There's, again, so many possibilities.
Or even better, like you play Dyson with McCollum, I think is probably their ultimate goal, like within 2 years, because Dyson's 6'7" and has long arms and is a phenomenal defender already. Right. It's just where he gets to offensively. So like it's, their ceiling is through the roof. We should talk about their 2021 draft though, because they absolutely drilled it. Herb Jones is the guy that got all the love, and we should talk about Herb first. He was one of, I would say, the 25 best defenders in the NBA last season. Look, I haven't gone through and listed defenders. Like, he's probably somewhere between 10 and 25. I'm throwing out a number, right? But he was one of the best. He was a phenomenal defender, multi-positional, can guard 1 through 4 very easily, incredibly disruptive with his length. And he's a genius. Like, this is a guy that I profiled pre-draft, and like, just as a guy that I thought would be really effective defensively in the NBA because of the way that he thinks through rotationally, just instinctually. He knows where to be. He reads things. He's very anticipatory in terms of knowing where exactly he needs to be. And that showcased itself immediately from day one in the NBA.
Yeah. And Trey Murphy, another guy in there who's continued to expand his game a little bit too on the offensive end of the floor. Like, he was pretty much all catch and shoot coming out of college. He looks a lot more comfortable with the ball in his hands right now. Really simple plays more than creative ones, but just his advancement, I think, has helped them, plucking Jose Alvarado out of the obscurity there as an undrafted guy, like really, really good find for their organization. They ended up having 3 guys that could be rotation players on a playoff team their rookie season. That's huge.
Yeah. Like, I did the redraft of the 2021 draft in, I don't know, April, late March, something like that. And I got like yelled at a little bit, not yelled at, but like, and I understand this is like kind of a polarizing opinion, but like, I think I would still take Trey Murphy over Herb Jones. And that's not an indictment of Herb in any way. I think Herb is phenomenal. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with the fact that I think Trey Murphy's upside is like Desmond Bainey if it goes right.
Yeah.
Like, maybe he can't dribble quite as well as Desmond, but it'll be different, I guess. But he's 6'9". He's a 42% 3-point shooter, and he is really effective defensively because he can move his feet very well. He's just such a two-way weapon as a role player. Like, Herb, I know that Herb shot like okay from 3 last year. Like, I think he shot like 35%, but teams just don't guard him out there, right? Like, they don't like, they want him shooting those shots. And that kind of bogs down the offense a little bit. And Herb's really smart in the way that he moves the ball, and he can dribble, and like, he figures it out on offense. Like, he's not like a negative offensive player, but I wouldn't call him a positive either. I think Trey can be a positive on both ends of the court at a pretty substantial level, to the point where I think he can be like one of the best role players in the NBA, like point blank. I love Trey Murphy. I absolutely love Trey Murphy.
Yeah, and I think that the offense fits a lot smoother next to a guy like Zion, where if Zion's in the lineup next year, the Herb Jones stuff offensively shows itself even a little bit more. He played some, I don't want to call it point guard, but primary handling minutes when he was at Alabama. I think that's where he knows how to function, is attacking poor decision makers and guys who sag off of him. There's still a little bit more to figure out. Okay, if I'm in the corner, I'm on the wings, I'm in an auxiliary role here. How do I punish those defenses that are trying to do that for the betterment of my team?
Yep. No, I think that's right. Jose Alvarado is really fun. Obviously Dyson Daniels is really fun. Yeah. Kyra Lewis is a guy that I liked pre-draft enough. He just hasn't gotten a clean run. Still very young, obviously. Maybe he'll figure it out. Maybe he'll get healthy and be an effective, maybe backup point guard. Maybe he turns into a starter. He has speed. He has skill. It's just unfortunate that he hasn't gotten the clean run yet to where we know what he can be. And
I'm going to be like Jack on the Titanic, just clinging on to him for all hope. Like he is one guy I'm not ever going to sell stock on. I love watching Kyra Lewis play in transition. I believe in the shot. I want him to get healthy. Don't know if the situation in New Orleans is really the right one for him developmentally long-term, just because there's so many different blockades to minutes and fascinating players in a different play style on their roster already. But I'm clinging on for dear life.
Yeah, and the last guy we should talk about is Jackson Hayes. Really turned into a guy that plays his role well. Could be a great fit with Zion Williamson if what we saw last year with some of the flashes is real. Like for instance, he took 1 3 a game and made it at 35%. Mm-hmm. Obviously, that's a thing that opposing teams were ecstatic to see, was him taking threes. They left him wide open a lot of the time. But if he can make that open three, it changes things because he is very athletic. He started a lot of games for them last year in 2 big lineups because his ability to guard fours and protect the rim on the weak side and provide some rebounding ability, just with his athleticism, he can just crash kind of everywhere and make things happen. He's definitely an NBA player. I was worried about him not being an NBA player after his second year. He's definitely an NBA player. He might be a legit starting caliber NBA player in a couple of years if things break right.
Yeah, really athletic, really, really good guarding both the 4 and the 5, which gives New Orleans just lineup versatility. If synergy is the word for the Memphis Grizzlies earlier, lineup versatility has to be it for New Orleans in terms of how they're building their roster. Just so many funky pieces that they can interchange and plug together and still be effective on both ends of the floor.